May I speak to you in the name of our Almighty Creator, the one holy and living God. Amen. Please take a seat. Happy Pride Sunday. Welcome. Since I found out I was preaching for Pride Sunday, I'll be honest with you, I've been going back and forth for weeks about what to say. In this years of challenge for the queer community, should I build up to a call for action, an ask, a solution? After a lot of reflection and prayer, I feel called to offer the queer community a love letter, to offer you a love letter, connected to the gospel readings, of course. As we've been reading in the Gospel of Matthew now for the last several weeks, Jesus has sent his apostles out into the world with a mission and authority to share the good news. He has explained that some people will recognize them as doing God's work, and others will mock and reject them. He has warned them that they should expect to encounter trials and be prepared for painful divisions within families and communities as they put the mission over loyalties. And he's offered them reassurance and guidance for their journey. Whoever welcomes you welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. The message we hear in this morning's gospel reading was important enough to Jesus and the early church that some variation shows up in each of the gospels, and often more than once. Emphasis is put on inclusion, welcome, and reciprocation of care for others, all the things that it takes to build up a community, to include the stranger as a neighbor. And in our gospel reading today, welcome is not just a nice thought. Jesus is referring practically to the willingness to offer support and shelter to those who represent him, to welcoming prophets as speakers of truth who expect opposition and violence at the hands of power, to welcoming the righteous as those who work for justice, usually risking their lives to do so, and to offering a cup of cold water to the little ones, the ordinary followers of Jesus who are traveling with the others. These acts of welcome come at a cost that surpasses food, water, and shelter. They bind those who offer welcome integrally with those who are welcomed. It was sometimes dangerous, a dangerous show of support to this small, persecuted religious group whose leader had just been violently killed by the state. It certainly wasn't popular yet. Whoever welcomes you welcomes me. These core values of welcome and radical hospitality feel particularly relevant this month and this day, the Sunday of the New York City Pride marches, when our city explodes into a celebration and assertion of the dignity of LGBTQIA+ people, and a commemoration of the Stonewall riots in 1969 and the continued fight and hard work done by so many for queer liberation. Many of us know intimately what it means to be rejected by religious institutions, by families and friends, by communities meant to protect us. And even as times may have changed in many ways, a warm welcome cannot always be assumed when we enter a space. But that is not the story here. What do you feel when you enter St. Luke's? What do you see? When I walk into St. Luke's, I see a worshiping community full of all different types of identities, gender expressions, and life experiences. I see parishioners right at home in their favorite section of the pews. I see the choir and the acolytes and the clergy genuinely so excited to lead worship. I see pride flags. I see the artifacts of the church's pastoral lead through the AIDS crisis. I feel the deep curiosity and love that you have for one another. I feel the commitment to continued care for the other through robust outreach programs that offer support to immigrant and refugee communities, the marginally housed, and queer youth. I feel the warmth of smiles and the comfort of feeling free to express your emotions in prayer. I feel the pride that y'all have to be here, to be in God's home. I feel welcomed. Many of us grew up in churches and communities that did not always make room for us or allow us to be who God created us to be. But we have not only made a brave choice to try again, but we have not only made a brave choice to try again, but we have created a new place for belonging. You created it. It's not always perfect. We have a lot of ways to go to make sure that everyone feels seen and uplifted here, but it is built from love. So I trust us to listen to how God is leading us there. There is holy resilience in people who are told that there is no room for you here, and yet have gone on to build longer tables instead of higher walls. Queer communities have done this again and again. Alongside allies, queer people have been builders. When the doors of religious institutions and families were closed, we gathered anyways, in living rooms, coffee shops, and community centers, in support groups, affirming congregations, and dance floors. We learned how to bless one another when no one else would. We celebrated name changes and coming outs, mourned losses, held hands through illness, rejoiced in love, and made room for every story. We reminded ourselves that the Spirit is not confined to buildings or institutions. Love has a way of finding cracks in the walls and growing gardens there. And this work of welcoming and being welcomed takes so much bravery and vulnerability. We queer people know firsthand that love for ourselves, love for the ones our hearts and bodies and flesh cry out to hold, this love can be costly. We know this because that is what you learn when it is We know this because that is what you learn when it is a political act every day to take your partner's hand in public, even in New York City. We know this because our rights are constantly in jeopardy, threatened, or revoked. We know this because it becomes a profound act of courage to put on the outfit that best expresses your identity, or dare to name the pronoun that resonates most with your spirit. When that is your life, you realize that love and authenticity are tangible and active, requiring strength and vulnerability and a willingness to be misunderstood, the willingness to put yourself out there and sometimes to pay the price for what is deeply, wholly, inescapably true, even if it's not acceptable to those around you. Welcoming and being welcomed requires a bravery that changes us. When we are actually willing to follow where God might lead us, we hardly ever end up where we expect to be. Today's deceptively small gospel reveals that for followers of Christ, transformation is necessary. With each new encounter, the apostles were changed by their lens of hospitality and their trust that things would work out, that God was with them. Early church communities grew and changed as they welcomed God and one another. When Jesus was welcomed into a household, it meant that the household became a part of the larger story, a subversive, sacred story of God and the world. The queer theologian Marcella Altheus Reed writes that God is in the margins. She argues that God at the margins is not a marginal God, or a God just briefly stopping by in the margins before going back to mostly being with those at the center of power and privilege. God is fully present and active in the lives of those excluded from traditional institutional settings or those who just feel like they don't belong. God in the margins isn't constrained by the restricted theologies of the center, but God is liberated and liberating, expanding and loving. Alphaeus Reed argues that for the excluded, God is on their side, actively working with them in their struggle to survive. At the margins, people look for places that God has hidden in order to expand their understanding of God. In her book, Indecent Theology, published in 2000, she says, God has remained hidden in our margins, hidden in the places that we want to ignore. Will we recognize and see this God? All those places that traditional Christianity has excluded or disparaged, God is there. The excluded are crafted in the image of God and show us more of God. The homeless person we walk by on the street is the face of God. The community living under the bridge is the face of God. The queer teenager rejected by their community is the face of God. The reign of God indeed springs up in these marginal places, not at its center. When we welcome in one another, we welcome in God. When we build communities of belonging, God is in the midst. When we gather to pray, when we lean on our communities, we cultivate the bravery to be ourselves, the bravery to hold hands in public, the bravery to face rejection, and the bravery to build beautiful, bold, brilliant communities. We, especially queer people of my generation, have benefited from the queer generations before us, and we are all the creators of the queer present and future. In a time that feels increasingly scary, it is vital to have a community like ours. I hope this legacy is one that you will keep honoring and continue to build and build and build. Because when you enter a queer affirming and queer cultivating space like St. Luke's, you can experience the healing that only comes from a true welcome. This welcome, created by and for each and every one of us, works to heal us. It is certainly working to heal me. Thanks be to God for all the LGBTQ+ people, marvelously and perfectly made, who continue to show us what it means to welcome. So, welcome to Pride Sunday here at St. Luke's. May your pride be happy, may it be brave, and may it be blessed. Amen.